The sun was dipping low over the rolling fields, casting long shadows across the ranch as if time itself were holding its breath. She pressed her back to the weathered barn, heart racing in a rhythm that matched the creaking of the wooden planks around them. Mason's boots crunched against the gravel, slow, deliberate, each step drawing him closer, closer, until the tension between them was almost unbearable. "Not here, not now," she whispered, voice trembling, eyes darting around as if anyone passing by might see them, might ruin the fragile thread of privacy that held them together in that moment. But Mason didn't stop. He didn't even hesitate. He moved forward, slow, measured, like a storm that had been waiting decades to make landfall, and the effect was immediate. Her knees weak, a shiver running through her spine from a mixture of fear and something else, something she couldn't quite name. He stopped just a few inches away, the scent of hay and sweat and something uniquely him surrounding her. His gaze held hers with an intensity that made the world shrink to the space between them. She could feel it in the heat of his stare, in the way his jaw flexed as he tried to rein in the tension coiling through him. Mason had always been careful, restrained, measured in everything he did, but not tonight. Not now. Tonight, every line, every muscle, every restrained impulse was pushing toward her, pressing against the boundaries she had built around herself for years. Her hands trembled, fingers curling against the rough fabric of her dress, a desperate attempt to anchor herself to something solid. "Mason, please," she breathed, barely audible, a warning and a plea wrapped in the same word. Her body betrayed her though. Her chest rose and fell too fast, and the subtle heat pooling in her stomach told her that her mind's refusal was no match for what her body wanted, for what her instincts demanded. He tilted his head slightly, a smirk brushing the corner of his lips, but there was a weight in his eyes, a quiet ferocity that made her shiver all over again. "You've been saying that for weeks," he murmured, voice low, rough, carrying an edge of amusement and something darker, more demanding beneath it. "Not here, not now, but everywhere else. You've been daring me, testing me. Now I'm taking the chance." Her breath caught. She wanted to step back, wanted to run, but her feet were rooted to the ground as if some invisible thread held her in place. Mason's presence was magnetic, undeniable, and the way he leaned closer, closing the remaining inches between them, made it impossible to think. All she could do was feel the heat of him, the energy radiating off his frame, the way the evening air seemed to hum with anticipation. The barn creaked above them, the horses shifted in their stalls, distant voices of the ranch hands fading into the twilight. She tried to focus on something else, anything else, but every attempt failed. Mason's hand hovered near her arm, a teasing, almost torturous pause, and she shivered, her body betraying her resolve. "Mason, we shouldn't," she said, voice barely more than a whisper, a thread of warning that tangled with longing. He reached out, fingertips brushing against hers, slow, deliberate, and it sent a jolt straight through her. That single touch, light as it was, set fire to every nerve ending she had. She gasped softly, heart hammering, and he didn't pull away. Instead, he leaned a fraction closer, enough that the heat of his body brushed against hers, enough to make her knees tremble beneath the weight of anticipation and desire. "You've been trying to resist me," he murmured, voice a low growl that made the hairs on her arms stand on end. "But every time, every single time, you give in just a little. You want it. You want this. Admit it." She swallowed hard, eyes wide, unable to look away. Every instinct screamed yes, but pride and fear tangled in her chest. Her lips parted slightly, a whispered "I" caught in her throat. Mason's hand moved again, brushing against the curve of her waist, just enough to ignite a spark that set her entire body alight. She shivered violently, a mix of fright and anticipation, and she realized that she had never felt anything like this before, not from anyone, not ever. The wind rustled through the cornstalks nearby, and it felt like the world itself was holding its breath. Mason's gaze never wavered. It pinned her, made her vulnerable, made her ache in ways she hadn't known were possible. The line between danger and desire blurred with every heartbeat, and she couldn't deny it anymore. The moment had arrived. The tension that had been building for weeks was about to snap, and there was nothing left to do but surrender, even if only for a heartbeat, even if only to see what would happen next. The shadows in the barn deepened as the last rays of sunlight disappeared beyond the horizon. Her heart thundered, a wild, uncontrollable rhythm that seemed to echo in the empty space around them. Mason's presence was overwhelming, magnetic, and every step he took closer made her shiver. A mix of fear and something far more dangerous, desire. She wanted to retreat. She wanted to step back and reclaim control, but her body betrayed her. Every instinct, every nerve, screamed in unison, pulling her toward him even as her mind screamed, "Stop." Mason could see it in her eyes, the conflict, the hesitation, the fight she was barely holding on to, and yet he didn't falter. He moved with a calm precision, like a predator circling its prey, his every movement deliberate, measured, and impossible to resist. "You're trembling," he said softly, voice low, warm, carrying that edge that made her shiver even more. His fingers brushed against hers again, tracing a path that sent fire shooting straight through her chest. Her knees felt weak. She pressed her back against the barn door, as if the rough wood could anchor her, keep her from falling into the gravity of his presence. "Mason, this isn't," she whispered, trying to force words past the tightness in her throat. Her chest heaved, breath shallow, betraying her resolve. But Mason didn't let her finish. He leaned closer, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating off his body, close enough that every rational thought she had was drowned beneath the intensity of his gaze. "You've been holding back," he murmured, voice a low growl that vibrated against her very bones. "Not here, not now, but I can feel it. I can feel how much you've wanted this. How much you need it." Admit it. Her lips parted, but no words came. Instead, a small, involuntary shiver escaped her, betraying everything she tried to hide. Mason's hand rested lightly on her waist, his thumb brushing her side, and the contact alone was enough to send waves of heat rushing through her. Her mind tried to protest, tried to rationalize, but her body refused to listen. The barn around them seemed to fade away. The creaking of the wood, the soft rustle of hay, even the distant lowing of cattle all became background noise, irrelevant compared to the tension coiling between them. Every brush of Mason's fingers, every glance, every subtle shift of his weight drove her closer to the edge she had been resisting for weeks. "Not here. Not now," she repeated, almost desperately, but the words sounded hollow, even to her ears. Mason's smirk widened, that quiet confidence that always made her shiver coming to the forefront. "Not here. Not now," he echoed, tilting his head slightly, studying her, teasing, testing. "You've been saying that for weeks. Every time we're alone you push and pull. You think I don't notice, that I don't know what you want." Her breath hitched. She couldn't deny it any longer. Every brush of his hand, every unspoken glance, every near touch had been driving her crazy, eroding her defenses without her even realizing it. The sensation of wanting, of needing, of surrendering. It was overwhelming. Mason's hands moved with quiet precision, grazing the curve of her arms, tracing the line of her shoulders. Her skin prickled at his touch, a fiery trail that left her shivering and wanting more, though the thought scared her. Her lips trembled as she tried to speak, tried to regain some semblance of control, but the words wouldn't form. Instead, she gasped softly, a sound of both surrender and protest. And he leaned closer, close enough that she could feel his breath against her cheek. "I can't wait anymore," she whispered, though it was barely audible, almost to herself. Her knees threatened to buckle, and she pressed against him, seeking stability, though the very act of touching him made her shiver uncontrollably. Mason's hands tightened ever so slightly on her waist, steadying her without breaking the charged moment between them. Time slowed, stretching each second into an eternity. Every glance, every shiver, every brush of skin against skin became amplified, filling the space with a tension so thick it was almost tangible. She felt caught between desire and fear, between the instinct to flee and the longing to surrender, and Mason seemed to sense it all, guiding the moment with perfect, deliberate restraint. "Look at me," he murmured, voice soft but commanding. His eyes held hers with a force that made her shiver again, deeper this time, the tremor running through her whole body. She obeyed, unable to resist, and in that instant, she realized there was no turning back. The walls she had built, the rules she had tried to enforce, all crumbled beneath the weight of the moment. And as he leaned closer, closing the space between them, her breath caught, and the barn, the evening, the world around them fell away. It was just the two of them, the tension, and the dangerous, intoxicating pull that neither could deny any longer. The barn seemed to close in around them, shadows deepening as night fully claimed the sky. Every sound, the creak of timber, the soft scuff of boots on hay, even the whisper of wind through the open door seemed magnified, echoing in the charged space between them. Her heartbeat pounded in her ears, a relentless drum of desire and fear, and she realized she could no longer resist. Mason's eyes never left hers. There was a softness in his gaze now, a patient, simmering heat that made her shiver all over again. He leaned closer, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face, and the simple touch sent sparks racing along her nerves. She felt herself melting, surrendering completely to the moment she had been holding back for so long. "You're trembling," he murmured, voice low and intimate, each word sliding over her like silk. "And I've been waiting for this. Waiting for you to let go." Her lips parted in a breathless gasp, and she could only nod, unable to form words. The walls of control she had built around herself had crumbled, leaving her exposed, vulnerable, and entirely his. Mason's hand rested on the small of her back, drawing her closer, grounding her even as he ignited a fire she didn't know she could feel. The world outside ceased to exist. There was no past, no future, just the present, stretching and bending around the two of them. Every inch of contact was electric, every glance heavy with unspoken promises. She trembled, shivered, gasped, each sound a testament to the intensity building between them. "You've held back long enough," Mason whispered, his voice a deep rumble that made her knees weak tonight. "You don't have to anymore." She wanted to speak, to resist, to protest, but it was too late. Her body betrayed her entirely, leaning into him, pressing against him, craving more with every heartbeat. His hands moved with deliberate precision, tracing the line of her shoulders, the curve of her waist, igniting heat wherever they touched. The tremor running through her body intensified, a mix of fear, excitement, and utter surrender. "You're mine." "If only for this moment," Mason said, his lips brushing hers in a fleeting, electrifying kiss. She shivered violently, the sensation nearly overwhelming. and yet she didn't pull away. She couldn't. Every nerve screamed in agreement with his touch. Every thought dissolved into raw, unfiltered need. Time seemed to stretch and compress simultaneously. Moments dragged with unbearable tension, then collapsed in sudden, breathtaking bursts of connection. She trembled against him, lost in a storm of sensation and emotion, a whirlwind she never wanted to escape. His hands, his voice, his presence, everything consumed her, wrapped around her like a force she couldn't resist. Not yet, not yet, she whispered again, though it was more a plea to the moment itself than to him. He only smiled knowingly, tightening his hold just enough to steady her while allowing the intensity to build. The tremors racking her body became more than just shivers. They were the release of all the restraint she had fought to maintain. And then, in that quiet, dark barn, with only the shadows as witnesses, she surrendered fully. Mason's presence enveloped her, grounding her, igniting her, and carrying them both to the edge of something neither could deny any longer. Every hesitation, every whispered protest, every shiver had led to this, the inevitable, breathtaking surrender that neither of them would ever forget. The world outside ceased entirely. In that moment, nothing existed beyond the heat, the tension, and the undeniable pull between them. She trembled in his arms, shivering from a mixture of fear and desire, and Mason simply held her, his calm confidence anchoring the storm of emotion raging inside her. Finally, the tremors slowed, her breaths coming in ragged, satisfied gasps. The intensity of the moment lingered, thick and palpable, leaving them both changed, connected, and irrevocably entwined. She looked up at him, eyes wide, shivering yet smiling, and for the first time, she realized that surrender wasn't weakness, it was freedom. Mason's smile softened, his hand still holding her close. "You're stronger than you think," he said quietly, almost reverently, "and braver than you know." Her shivers subsided slowly, replaced by a warmth that spread through her chest, the memory of every shiver, every touch, every electrifying second burning into her very bones. She had crossed the line of fear and hesitation, and in doing so, she discovered something far greater herself, fully alive, fully present, and utterly untouchable in her newfound freedom. And in the quiet aftermath, as the barn settled into darkness and their breaths synchronized, she knew this night would linger forever. A memory marked by trembling surrender and the unstoppable, undeniable force of what it meant to truly let go.